Thank you for staying with Daybreak. The conversation begins right now. Send in your views on the presidential State of the Nation address. What was your reaction? What were your highlights? What are your hits? What are your misses? At Trevor Mbija, at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. Start that conversation right now. I'll introduce my guest earlier on. Let me do it one more time. Dr. Kimani Wamatangi, Senator for Kiambu, is here. Honorable Gladys Boss, Uasin Gishu Women Representative, is here. And Dr. Boni Halwale, former Kakamega Senator, is also with us. Dr. Alfred Mutua couldn't make it. He sent in his apologies. Honorable Boss, let's start with you on this. What is your immediate reaction from what the president said yesterday?
My immediate reaction is that it left me wondering whether the president lives in Kenya or whether his advisors and speechwriters live in Kenya. It clearly showed that he's completely oblivious of what is happening in the country. That was one. Secondly, I was a bit shocked about how brave he was in actually daring to circumvent the rule of law. I think I'll quote what he said. He said, we cannot behave like the proverbial ostrich and bury our heads in the sand. He said that a constitutional moment does not resolve itself by being ignored. So he said there is need for political stabilization, as this is the most urgent problem facing Kenya. And he says that it's based on the foundation of greater justice, fairness, health, and wealth. The question is, and so he says, for this reason, it shall happen. So basically, he's telling us that whether you like it or not, whether the courts rule differently, he will ensure that there is constitutional change. So the question is he planning to disobey the law and circumvent the Constitution? Is he planning to disobey the court orders that have been given? Is he going to force constitutional change upon Kenyans? Because it's already been declared, that constitutional moment that he's talking about and that constitutional change that he intended has already been declared null and void. So he cannot tell us that it shall happen. The question we should be asking is, what does it mean? In fact, he's in contempt of court. First of all, the president in his State of the Nation address actually going on to discuss something that is sub judice. It is currently before the Supreme Court of Kenya. That was gravely wrong. And then when he talks about the biggest problem facing us is political stability, Kenya is a stable country. In fact, he inherited and took over a stable country. There is not a single problem with that. Secondly, I want to read, it made me go back to what Article 132 of our Constitution says. It says the president shall, once every year, report in an address to the nation all the measures taken and progress achieved in the realization of national values referred to in Article 10. It doesn't give him any other window. It also, then it goes on to say that he shall submit a report for debate to the National Assembly on the progress made in fulfilling our international obligations. There is nothing in his State of the Nation address that actually answers what he is supposed to do under Article 132. And Article 132 is in mandatory terms, shall. It doesn't say the president may. It says the president shall. Also, he goes on to speak about certain developments, roads, infrastructure, electrification, and technical and vocational training colleges. Those are achievements that started in 2013 and went on to 2017. He then goes on to talk about agenda for which was supposed to be for his second term. I want you, as the media, go and film and show Kenyans the exact houses that were built, how many. Because these are facts that can be confirmed on the ground. We want us to film the industries, the manufacturing industries, and the agenda for that have come up and how many people have been employed. We can start an online issue and let Kenyans log in if they've been employed recently in those factories. Okay. When he goes to say that part of Agenda 4 is universal health care, we know that today all of us are involved in fundraisings every day to pay for medical bills for Kenyans. We know that under COVID, Kenyans died because they could not afford medical help. And that constitutional moment that he's talking about was his personal constitutional moment with less than 5 other persons. It was not a constitutional moment by Kenyans, because a constitutional moment can only happen by popular initiative, is when Kenyans want it, or when it's a parliamentary initiative, when Kenyans demand it through their parliamentary representatives. It is not a constitutional moment when he, as the president alone, shall do it.
Okay.
Lastly, I want you to remember that in the same Article 131, it says the president shall respect and uphold and safeguard this constitution. He has not upheld or safeguarded this constitution because he cannot even follow Article 132, which tells him what to do in a State of the Nation address. Okay. It also goes on to say that ensure protection of human rights and the fundamental freedoms and the rule of law. When you criticize the Supreme Court, which is currently, or disregard the Supreme Court, which is currently hearing the BBI case, and the Chief Justice is sitting in the same parliament where you're given a State of the Nation address, that is the biggest sign of circumventing the Constitution. Okay. Also, Justice Masiga was present during the time, and he sat in the Court of Appeal decision. How dare he? So he is actually telling us, I don't know either he doesn't know the law, his advisors don't know the law, or he's just decided to outright ignore it. And worst of all, he arrived at he started his speech at 3:45. All of us who've been in Parliament know the bell rings at around 2:10 or 2:20, and then we should all be seated by the time the Speaker walks in with the president. So first of all, he's disrespectful of Parliament, disrespectful of Kenyans, and refuses to even do the simplest thing that shows discipline and respect, which is keep time. Okay. And then, of course, his speech went on forever, for 2 hours and 21 minutes. Okay. No, I don't think anybody was bothered to listen to it.
All right. Well, thank you. What is the immediate reaction? I'll come back to Honorable Boss to see if there's anything good from the speech, but let's hear what you think first.
Yes, Trevor. Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, we're used to last days.
Yes. Now you feel a bit misplaced.
So it's a bit disorienting to be here on a Wednesday. Yeah. But however, Trevor, I think the speech, you know, in a State of the Nation address by the President as mandated by the Constitution, it's a report on progress. It's not necessarily a justification of why and how everything happened. You know, you report as it is. And once you report it as it is, it doesn't mean that, you know, you must report only on bad terms or either on good terms. Irrespective of what has happened, you report what steps have you made to bring the nation closer to the aspirations of the people that you lead. And of course, based on the promises that your administration has promised upon election. And I think as far as him rolling out and explaining to Kenyans how we have walked the journey up to today, I think he did a fair job, in my view. It is acknowledgeable that the speech was long. Indeed, he had to cut it. There was a big bundle he didn't read. He was sitting very close. Yeah. And so I saw he put aside one and said, I'm trying to go. So he went to the conclusion. There are things maybe he would have wanted to say more that he didn't say. But if you look at some of the matters that he raised and issues he chronologized, some of them, most of them are there, for sure. He spoke about the infrastructure, all of them has been done. And from here you can see, you know, the expressway, the roads that have been done, and they are there, you can see. The questions that probably would be raised, and hear what shall I say, on maybe what more would you have expected to hear, from him. And if you expected to hear more on some of those other issues, I think that can form the debate, but that does not mean that what he said is untrue. On maybe some of the questions, if you can go to the details if you like, if you want us to do that now. Yeah. He reported on our 100% transition to Form 1. And we know that that's one of the issues that we are raising. We're having to deal with now as government, because admissions to Form 1, you see, have had to stir the Minister of Education to new action. He spoke about the critical economy. And indeed, although we have been through tough times during COVID, and although the economy indeed didn't grow and jobs were lost, he compared and said there were worse situations in other countries, but at least the resilience of our people helped us to hold up to where we did, and now we're starting to grow again. I think those are things that a president needs to say. Just say this that part of the responsibility of the president also is to inspire the country. And you inspire the country by giving hope, shining light on where opportunities are, so that your people can focus on them and make progress in them. If you stand in front of the nation and people have been waiting for you to tell them where you are and where you're taking them, and then you come there and just dwell on gloom and doom, then you are indeed stopping your people. Lastly, maybe what I would also add is that for him, this is as much as the last stage of the nation address. I think it was justified and it is right that he would take an account of the time when he has been in office since 2013. And irrespective of when some of those things happen, because the economy, as you know, is not a highway that goes on a plateau.
Okay.
So you have ups and downs because the effects that definitely affect the economy. So I think, as far as that's concerned, he did a fair job.
All right. I seem to be having a challenge with your microphone, Wamatangi. I'll come to you in just a bit there. Yes, I'll come back to you in just a bit, just a short while. Halwale, what is your reaction to this State of the Nation address?
What came out clearly was that the president took too long to say what he wanted to say. And I see no problem with it because this was the last time he was ever going to address us as a president. So obviously, he wanted to make the most of it. But unfortunately, who was preparing it for him should then have developed credible content. Having said that, I was pleased that something salient came out of his speech, i.e., he started tracing his journey in politics, which to me signaled the fact that he was now admitting that it was all over. Secondly, he ended up allaying the fears of some people that there were people around him who were pushing him to extend his term. Kenyans will remember how Francis Atwoli was saying that the president was too young to retire, and that kind of unreasonable sort of talk. So to me, it was refreshing. Now, going to the content of the speech, I was amazed that the president of Kenya chose to dwell for so long a time on building bridges initiative. I don't know who can talk to the president and the former prime minister quietly and convince them that it's all over. BBI was actually found to be illegal, unconstitutional, and that it was actually void, null and void. They better live with that. Yes, we think like every person, they elevate their own status, but at the end of the day, they're human beings, and the human beings of Kenya are at peace with the fact that BBI was declared null and void. I saw also an attempt to dwell on his legacy projects. And as my sister Gladys has said, he spoke to actual projects which we know. But what he did not want Kenyans to remember, or whoever wrote the speech, was that those were projects of his first term of government. And he had already spoken to them in his previous State of the Nation address. We wanted him to concentrate on the big four, and tell us where the big four are. Now, because the big four are such important issues, we cannot just say, okay, the big four, and we wanted to do it, we are doing it, we are going to do it. No. The big four are actually specific. Let's go to health, where the president said he had achieved a lot in health. Achieving in health does not mean putting up buildings. It's actually delivery of affordable health which is accessible to members of the public. If you go in most of the hospitals, dispensaries, and health centers across the republic, you will find that either they are understaffed or some are abandoned, and the ones which have staff, they do not have drugs, and at the end of the day, patients just go there to pick prescriptions to go and buy drugs from elsewhere. So he cannot say he has been a success in the issue of health. On the issue of manufacturing, it is very easy for a Kenyan to see if there's been any success. What success do we have in manufacturing? There is none. And because I would like to also say what he did not say, he should also have remembered to tell us that he's leaving this country under a mountain of debt. The public debt is huge, courtesy to the way he was borrowing. And then he should also have spoken, even if it simply meant condemning, to the issue of fiscal indiscipline in this government. It has been so gross that shamelessly we had the president promising that within 21 days action was going to be taken against the COVID billionaires at KEMSA. Nothing was done. Young people, I understand 900 of them or so at KEMSA, have lost their jobs. People who had nothing to do with the theft of those funds. The president has talked of 2 billion shillings being lost at the office of the president. That kind of gross indiscipline speaks to a failed presidency.
Okay. Boss, you termed the president as oblivious. Are you saying that all these things that he talked about did not happen, or that he exaggerated them?
I think he misreported some of them. Like we've said, in terms of his achievements in the first term, they were accurate. And it's what he told us that last year and the year before last. What we are talking about is he should be telling us the progress of this second term, especially his own Agenda 4. So he should have been reporting the progress in manufacturing, the progress in universal health care and the challenges and where we are at, the progress on issues relating to food security, and the progress in terms of job creation and so on. He did not address those factually. I wanted him to say, we now have actual affordable housing. When you say, and when you talk about healthcare, don't tell me that you've increased the spending on health from 36 billion to 121 billion. Expenditure is not a success indicator. The success indicator is that people not only have access to a hospital, which means they go to the hospital, but that they actually get treatment and medication, and that they actually live there healthier or become healthier soon thereafter. That is the success indicator for health, not how much you spent. When you also tell me that you have built from 4,400 health facilities to 6,000, again, that is not a success indicator. That is brick and mortar. The question is, did someone arrive at that hospital and get quality care? And care that was actually capable of moving them from being their state of health at the time they entered the healthcare system and the state of health at the time when they left. when we talk about just building facilities, today Kenyans will tell you horrendous stories about people coming from as far as Meru to Kenyatta National Hospital to seek chemotherapy treatment. They are required to have maybe 3 sessions a week. They do not have the resources to live in Nairobi. Neither do they have the transport to be able to move back and forth from Meru to Nairobi. Yeah. So that is, until that person does not have to move that long distance to get treatment, then that is the success indicator, not the actual expenditure that has been put on it. Again, when you say NHIF membership has moved in from 4 million to 10 million, tell us how many people were covered. Because we know for a fact that 40% of what we put into NHIF goes to administrative cost for the big offices, the motor vehicles, the officers, the employees, the paperwork, printing the cards. It doesn't necessarily mean it has gone to pay for my treatment or for my health care. Also, the reason why I say he's painted a very rosy picture that our GDP has grown, the highest in the history of Kenya. He talked about, I think there was GDP, and he mentioned something else that has increased twofold. You know, the economic growth and so on. Talk to any Kenyan. You don't have to be an economist. If there was economic growth, we would feel it. If there was economic growth, people today would not be saying we are having economic challenges. So, and then another reason why I say he doesn't live in Kenya is when he says the biggest issue facing Kenya today is political stability.
Is it not? Heading into a political...
Well, is Kenya unstable? Have we had any civil unrest within Kenya? Have we had any challenges living in Kenya? You drive across the country, go around. There's no political instability in Kenya.
But the elections are coming.
In fact, the opposition is working together with government. So there is not even an opposition. So there isn't a hint of political instability. But he also goes on to contradict himself by saying that that stability depends on fairness, justice, the rule of law, which he has blatantly disobeyed. He still is talking about a process that the courts have clearly said is unconstitutional. He had no business mentioning BBI at the State of the Nation address. That's why I say if he lived in Kenya, he would know. There was a High Court unanimous decision saying that BBI was unconstitutional. There was a Court of Appeal decision, a 7-person bench. And now it is currently before the Supreme Court, and even then they haven't appealed on all the 23 issues that were raised. That means he has not even read the judgment, neither has he been briefed.
Okay, Mama Jangi.
I hope
yes, you're clear now.
You can hear me now.
Yes.
So you can't hear me, or is it something I was saying that you didn't want to hear?
No. It's not about me. It was just a slight technical challenge.
Because maybe I was saying something that was not going well with your ears.
No. All is well. You're clear now.
Not to mention the tie you're wearing.
It's just a tie of a Twangi.
Anyway, Trevor, I think one fact we agreed about from when we started this discussion, and we should agree about it, is that a report on progress is not a report on the levels of satisfaction of your people. It is a report on how have you made your steps and how many have you made on your journey forward. That is a report. Yeah. It is not a measure of, what nowadays is called the happiness index of your people. People could still be suffering, but have you moved? That is what the State of the Nation report is about. And then when we talk about that we should have had him reporting on this Big Four agenda and on the last few years of his presidency, other than between 2013 and 2017. Now, what you're saying is like somebody running a marathon, and you're telling them, report to me between the last 20 kilometers of your run and how you finished, but don't report on the first. I mean, the report must start from when you started the journey. And so, when he enumerates the gains, and remember, he's reporting on progress of even projects that started at that time and are being completed now. So because there was a lot much more success because of several circumstances during that first session, I believe probably that's why my colleagues would be saying, let's hear where we have the issues of corona, where we have this problem. So let's embrace the whole report and ask questions on what is dissatisfactory on the entire report for the entire journey. And you see, Trevor, the facts you can't deny. For example, when he was speaking about the growth of the economy, you can't argue with facts because those are facts that are there. Remember, the World Bank and IMF itself categorized Kenya as now a middle-income economy. And they actually moved us out of beneficiary countries which continue to benefit from their grants and other loans, because we have moved to a level whereby now they think that this is an economy that has got muscle to keep moving forward. I mean, if you looked at the Economist report on Africa, it is a fact that you cannot deny that Kenya now is the 6th wealthiest nation in Africa, with the biggest economy. Those are facts we cannot argue with. They're there, the international facts. And so, yes, those are things that have happened. And personally, I see no reason in appraising and telling people where your strengths are. And you know, let's also be factual about this. This is not a report on Uhuru as a person. It's a report on the country delivered by the president. And it is a report on what the people did, the 50 million of us, you know, to grow that economy to that level whereby you are saying now you've grown to the 6th, biggest economy in Africa. It's not saying that does not mean that this is what he did as a person, but this is what industrialists have done. This is what other sectors of the economy have done to get us to that level. So let's not confuse this with the personal record. But however, because he is the one who is leading the nation, that is why it is translated into the legacy of how he has led. And for example, if you look at, and it is important that we have a discussion that also reflects on our facts and what we've said in the past. When you talk about the BBI and the mention that he had about it, we have been on these discussions, and I have my clear record in my mind, unless I'm wrong, where I've had my brother, Boni Halwale, my sister here, Boss. Earlier on, when the BBI debate was hot, we discussed, and they said loudly that there are issues in this BBI that would not even have needed or required a constitutional amendment, and indeed would have been dealt with by Parliament itself in the BBI. And so when he was saying that this is eventually going to happen, he would probably have been referring to the fact that there are parliamentary processes that would be instituted now to realize some of those things that were in the BBI report, not necessarily saying that they are going to revive or he's intending to revive the BBI process, because it is acknowledgeable that that process is now rendered dead on its tracks, you know where it is for that matter. Given the timelines between now and the elections, there is nothing much that would happen to that process that would give it the results that were intended. But a lot can be realized if we picked, and most of us, all of us agree, Trevor, and indeed the court itself agreed, that it is not the content of the BBI itself. It is the process that was faulted by the court. Yeah. And inside that document or those proposals, there were very good things. Both of my colleagues here are on record, even in this show, as having said that this was good in the BBI, this was good in the BBI, it should have been done this way or that way. So supposing, and I believe what he was referring to is redo the process, probably pick what can be implemented by Parliament, and then you would have a better country. I don't see any reason why anyone would have a fight with saying that if we use the parliamentary process, indeed then we can put it in law that counties now can earn a minimum, and underline the word minimum, because that's where people make a mistake. You know, when you say that you're going to devolve funds to county governments, and you do not take cognizance of the fact that if you have not underlined that word minimum, it means that you can play in between the law margins. That means that for any county to receive money, the minimum you'd be receiving is 35%. What's wrong with that? We all know that devolution is what we want, and we want to strengthen it. And anyway, a whole plethora. Yeah. We are advocates, and I'm a believer in proportional representation, personally. And one of the biggest fights that have been fought, even inside the House of Parliament, led by none other by strong people like Boss Shole here, is to ensure that there is proper equal representation of our women in Parliament and other institutions. If a way would be found legally, other than not in the BBI process, but using a parliamentary process, that would make this real in law, I mean, what would be wrong in it? So the only problem is if we want to find fault in what we're saying. Lastly, for example, is on this issue of health. I do not think that the report the president gave, and because we live in these counties, as a senator, I've been involved quite a lot. I've been serving with the Public Accounts Committee, even here with Senator Boni Halwale, we've gone around counties. Part of what we would talk about health, and especially on what the president said yesterday, on provision of equipment, is there were serious questions, for example, in equipping our hospitals, because of issues of costs of that equipment, on whether that equipment was operationalized by the county governments. Those questions remain. But for the larger part, the equipment was applied. Indeed, some hospitals that you would have never been before able to go and get an X-ray, you can today. And so it doesn't mean that you would not report on what was good and what should be made better. I believe what we'd be saying and asking ourselves on this is, those gaps that are there, how can they be closed? What was not done? How would you do it better? And if you ask me, because the president is retiring in August 2022, would be asking, how do you cheer this man on for the remaining lap? So that when you're doing that, and support him, so when he exits, he has done the maximum. Whoever takes over will come and complete the journey.
All right. All right, I have to take a quick break here on Daybreak. I see Madam Boss has a lot to say, and also Halwale, but I'll come back to you in just a bit. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbiji at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. I'll sample some of them. I see their reaction here a lot online. We'll come back to that in just a bit.